say good morning to you all, but obviously to be here in this room to say our goodbyes to Lorraine. It is not a good morning for any of us, fittingly cloudy, fittingly raining, sort of to set the mood. But of course, as was always the case for Lorraine, if there was even a proverbial or metaphoric cloud that sometimes may have darkened aspects of her life, there was always sunshine to follow. Always some way to find a illumination through the darkness, some way to find sunlight when it was hard for others. And it is that inspiration that we'll commemorate this morning, not only with words that I'll share with you, but also words from her family, words from those who loved her. And of course, as the rabbi, my job is to put the day of her death in the context of our calendar, in the context of our Torah. And I think that you will all be beautifully surprised at the lessons that she wished to share with us through the days of her passing. We welcome, of course, not only Hank, where are you? We thank Hank for being here and for being a part of Lorraine's life for the past nearly 20 years. We acknowledge Maurice Zichrono Livracha, to Karen, and of course to Mary, and to Adam. Here we go. Sandy is here, Lorraine's sister and her husband Larry. Stephen, her brother, is here. Of course, there's many others from extended family, many others who are friends, whose lives were touched by Lorraine's kindness, her ability to bring joy to people. It is important that we acknowledge that the Jewish people, when we respond to death, we use 3 words of blessing to acknowledge the passing. I'd like you to please repeat after me in the Hebrew, Baruch Dayan Ha'emet. Praised is the judge of truth. Adonai Natan, Adonai Lakach, Yehi Shem, Adonai Mevorach. God is given, God is taken. Praise be the name of Adonai. And in the words of Kohelet, in the words of Ecclesiastes, there's a season set for everything, a time, of course, for every experience under heaven. A time for dancing, a time for wailing, a time for birthing, a time for dying, a time for speaking, a time for silence, a time for seeking, a time for losing. And the time of mourning, of course, is complicated, filled with many emotions, many memories. And we're going to begin our service this morning. We will link Lorraine's life with the 3,000-year-old tradition of the people of Israel, the eternity of God. I will read the Psalms in both Hebrew and translate them in English for those of you who may not be able to understand them. Important, of course, as we acknowledge Kohelet, as we acknowledge Ecclesiastes, and that sort of yin and yang, for lack of a better phrase, the polarities of life. And we see that in, of course, Lorraine's life as well. Darkness sometimes, yet sunlight when it was necessary, and her ability to find it. Mizmor leDavid, Adonai mi yagor bo alecha, mi yishkon bahar kodshecha. הולך תמים ופועל צדק ודובר אמת בלבבו. לא רגל על לשונו, לא עשה רעהו רעה וחרפה לא נשא על קרובו. נבזה בעיניו נמאס ואת ירא אדוני יכבד, נשבע לרע ולא ימיר כספו. לא נתן בנשק ושחד על נקי לא לקח, עושה אלה לא ימות לעולם. A Psalm of David. Do we deserve to enter God's sanctuary? Can we merit a place in the presence of God, live with integrity, do what is right, speak the truth without deceit, have no slander upon your tongue, and do no evil to others? Do not mistreat your neighbor and spurn a contemptible person, but honor those who revere Adonai. Never retract a promise once made, though it may bring you harm. Lend no money at unfair rates and accept no bribe against the innocent. Make these deeds your own, and then shall you stand firm forever. Can we merit a place in the presence of God, live with integrity, and do what is right? Sometimes doing what is right is not doing what is easy. Sometimes doing what is right is not doing what is easy. Anybody who knew of Lorraine's family dynamic and the amount of commitment she put into being a mother knows that sometimes doing what was right was not doing what was easy. And she should be commemorated and celebrated for that. Mizmor David Adonai ro'i lo echsar. Bino deshe yal bitseni al mei menuchot yanchaleni. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures, and he leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul, and he guides me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, and my cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. And the final piece of liturgy I will read for us today, Eshet Chayil Meyimtza. What a precious find is an Eshet Chayil, a woman of valor, written 3,000 years ago. Her worth is far beyond measure. Her husband and then her partner both put confidence in her. They lacked no good thing. She was good, never bad, all the days of her life. She opened her hand to those in need, those that could not care for themselves. She extended her hand to the poor. She was clothed in strength and splendor, even towards the last days of her life, always finding something new to wear. She looked to the future cheerfully. She opened her mouth with wisdom. Her tongue was guided by kindness. She oversaw the activities of her household, never ate the bread of idleness. Not one, not two, but I believe 3 degrees at a time where women her age didn't even go to college. Everyone praises her. Many women have done superbly, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceitful, beauty is vain, but a God-revering woman is much to be praised. Extol her for the fruit of her hand, wherever people gather, as we do today. It will be her deeds that speak her praise. And to help us summarize, remember, recall, and celebrate those deeds, we have several eulogies that will be read this morning. I'd like to begin with Larry. You want to go last? You can go last. Gabby can go first. Sammy, Gabby.
Larry.
Okay.
Did I get that right? Okay.
They have a pre-existing order, which I'm just learning now. Whoever was designated to go first. Batting cleanup is a sacred position.
Okay, hi everyone, I'm Sammy. I am Hank's granddaughter, and for the last 17 years, almost 20 years, I had the pleasure of having Lorraine in my life. And I looked at her as my grandmother. I spent more time with her than both of my blood grandmothers. And so she made a huge impact on my life and my son's too. So that was a beautiful relationship I got to watch as well. And Karen asked me to read to you this, what I refer to as a love letter I wrote to Lorraine the day she died, before she died. And I had the opportunity to actually read it to her before she passed. And then she did a few moments later, so I'd like to think this put her at comfort, and I would love to share it with you since Karen wants me to, and it's a huge honor. So here it goes. This is word for word. They said, don't change it. So it was good the way it was, they said. So I wrote, Lorraine, I wanted to write you a love letter because it is very important to me that you know how much you are loved by me and Logan, who knows you as his great grandmother. He says your name almost every day, even though we can't see you as often as we would like, since we do not want to bring his germs from school near you. Despite that, he still talks about you almost every day because you made that much of an impact on him because of how special you are. Logan would want me to tell you that he thinks it's so funny when you bark at him and make animal noises together. This is your thing that you guys do together that is special between you and Logan. Watching you interact with him as he's grown from a baby to an almost 3-year-old has been so beautiful. And you're just so natural with babies and small children. He loves you so much. You have been my grandma in my eyes ever since I was about 12 when you got together with Hank. Almost 12 years of loving you and receiving your love like I was your own granddaughter. You were at my house the day Logan got home from the hospital and were literally the first to meet him even before my own parents. You and Zadie helped me buy a car when we got into a car accident when I was pregnant without a car. We're driving our car today because of you and Zadie. When I had the opportunity to move to Florida, I chose Florida because you and Zadie are here. And I'm so glad I did because over the last 7 years I've been in Florida, we have gotten even closer. I love how caring you are and the way you take care of the people that you love. I love how patient and kind you are. I love all your stories, and I don't always tell you if you already told me this story before because I want to hear it again because they're always good. And I love how animals sense you are a wonderful person and want to be near you. I love how you always say, how come after I eat, I'm not hungry anymore? And all your little jokes. I love your hugs. And I feel like there's so much more to say about why I love you and how much. And I'm struggling to put it into words. So this may be the best I got. Bottom line, I love you so much, Lorraine. And so does Logan. Thank you.
That was beautiful.
Hi, I'm Helene, the oldest of Lorraine's nieces and nephews. Okay, this eulogy was actually written by my cousin Sal Israel, who's unable to be here today because he has COVID. It epitomizes the thoughts and feelings that we all have for Aunt Lorraine. Lorraine was a special person. We all know that. Here's what made her special. She was strikingly beautiful as a young girl and as a grown woman, but more importantly, she was beautiful inside. Lorraine was smart, top of her class, valedictorian. She earned many degrees. She was funny. She was quick with a joke or to poke fun at you or your situation, all of which made you laugh or brought a smile to your face. Lorraine was warm, embracing, and loving, and we all experienced that. She was gentle, but tough when she needed to be. She dealt well with the curveballs life threw at her, and we all know that she had more than her fair share. Lorraine was astute in financial matters, something she may have learned from Maurice. Sal personally witnessed this over and over as she planned for her future, Karen's future, and Adam's future. Lorraine was proud of so many things, her delicious pastels and her Hiroses for an army, the homes that she renovated and decorated, her Tesla and her Apple Watch, Apple phone, and Apple everything. She was at the forefront of technology. But most of all, Lorraine was most proud and loved so deeply those nearest and dearest to her. Her parents, our grandparents, Solomon and Bella, who raised her. Her siblings, Gladys, Pauline, Sandy, and Stevie, with whom she shared so much of her life. The loves and companions of her life, Maurice and Hank, and her jewels, Karen and Adam. She showered each and every one of them with her love and respect, and regaled all of us with the incredible stories of their lives together and each of their special talents and accomplishments. Our heart aches today over her passing, but we are all so blessed to have had her in our lives for so long, and we all have memories that will give us comfort and strength. Amen.
Hi, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Gabby. I'm Sandy's granddaughter, Lorraine's great niece. When I put this together, I spoke to many family members in the hopes that I could best capture Lorraine's essence. My Aunt Lorraine was like sunshine. She radiated warmth and light. She never failed to bring love and comfort wherever she went. She was optimistic, resilient, gracious, and witty. She was full of laughter, never without a smile or a joke, even when she was facing adversity in her own life. Just a year ago, when I visited her, she was teasing me about my dating life, wanting to know what young men were like these days. My grandmother, Sandy, her younger sister, described her big sister as her role model. Being a few years older, Lorraine had boyfriends calling for her in their teenage years, and Sandy would sometimes answer the phone, pretending to be her big sister because their voices sounded the same. She says Lorraine taught her everything she knew. In her teenage years, as in the rest of her life, Lorraine was fashionable and coordinated, the classy to Sandy's trendy. Later in life, she doled out her fashion advice liberally. Each season, when she bought new pieces for her wardrobe, she picked one primary color and one secondary color. And then she only bought clothing and accessories in those colors so that she was always coordinated down to her earrings. She always had a face of makeup on, and of course, it was done perfectly. Anyone who knew her could attest that there was no one more together than Aunt Lorraine. Beneath her color-coordinated veneer, though, Aunt Lorraine had a heart overflowing with love. She would always say that she was the luckiest person to love not just Maurice, but to find great love again over the last 2 decades with Hank. She loved deeply and limitlessly. Nothing exemplifies this more than the pride and love she had for both of her children. She proudly displayed Karen's incredible photography throughout her home and had countless albums full of photos and magazine covers. And Lorraine, of course, always was a fierce advocate for Adam, making sure that he was able to thrive in his life. Beyond that, she always had room in her heart for her extended family, her nieces and nephews, her great nieces and nephews, and even her granddogs, Stella and Google. When we were kids and visited her at her home on Long Island, not only were we welcome to stay and play, but my brother was always thrilled when Aunt Lorraine gave him devil dogs for breakfast alongside Adam. Of course, we had to be careful not to smush her throw pillows too much. They needed to be constantly fluffed. She had pictures displayed of every single person in her entire extended family. And in these last difficult weeks, looking at family photos on her Knicks play brought her comfort and happiness. Lorraine's home was always open to whoever needed a bed, although she liked to say it was bed and breakfast without the breakfast. And whether it was someone working at Catalina for the summer or needed a place that felt like home during a college break, her home was open. I'm told she even gave Andrea her first bath as a newborn, right in her kitchen sink. Aunt Lorraine was always willing to offer a helping hand or a listening ear, and she had the patience of a saint. She liked to be a peacemaker in a family of strong personalities. She was a wonderful cook throughout her life, creative and innovated, and created her own spice blends and recipes. Her Passover recipe for haroset for an army will always be iconic and is a treasured recipe to many of us. She didn't limit herself to traditional cooking though. Nothing Aunt Lorraine did her whole life was completely traditional, after all. She once went through a Chinese food phase, where she loved to have big dinners with her whole family and serve homemade Chinese food straight from her wok. Of course, she loved teaching her nieces and great nieces to make pastel, and I will never forget her amazement when she first got a KitchenAid after decades of mixing the dough by hand, which is a very labor-intensive process. She continued to love her kitchen gadgets, and she reveled in showing them off, often taking visitors by the wrists so they couldn't escape, and pulling them around her kitchen so they could properly appreciate it all. Aunt Lorraine enjoyed giving advice about love and dating to her nieces and her great nieces, and she once gave the following advice to a cousin I will not name about finding a boyfriend or husband. No control freaks, see how he treats others. He should help you achieve what you want to achieve, and rich today, poor tomorrow. It's safe to say she knew what she was talking about, even if the rest of us aren't quite sure what she meant. When talking to us about dating, she always made jokes that were honestly a little uncomfortable, with a knowing gleam in her eye, a giggle, and a wide smile. She was relentlessly cheerful her whole life and lively. I've been told that once when walking around a flea market, Andrea was whining, and so to make her laugh, Aunt Lorraine kept poking her in the butt with a hockey stick. To her, nothing in life was worth whining about, and she always knew how to make those around her feel the same. She brought joy into our lives wherever she went. We will all miss her deeply, and we'll remember Lorraine wherever we find small joys in life. I know that she would want us to think of her and smile.
Thank you, Gabby.
This started out with everybody said, Larry, you have to speak because nobody else is going to speak. I don't know if I have anything left to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. Because it's what I'm going to say is just purely my experience. In the classic movie, It's a Wonderful Life, which I'm sure most of you, if not all of you, are familiar with. When a bell rings, it means an angel has earned his or her wings. Wednesday, the bells tolled because an angel was taken from us. Lorraine Levy was a true angel living among us. In the roughly 66 years I've known Lorraine, I never heard her ever say a negative thing about anyone, even certain politicians. It just wasn't in her makeup to criticize or judge anyone. She had nothing but love to give to her family and friends. And that was more than enough for us who were so lucky to be in her life. She was always there for us, in good times or bad, comforting us when we needed comfort, giving us strength when we needed strength, helping us to get through whatever life threw at us. A true angel. When adversity struck her, she never hid from it, but faced it head on with her chin up. Who but a true angel could have done for Adam what she did? Faced with the most terrible diagnosis a parent could ever get, she met it head on and used her remarkable skills and talent to educate him and provide him with a meaningful life. And no parent could have been a better cheerleader than she was for her daughter Karen, her multi-talented daughter Karen. And when her late beloved husband of blessed memory, Maurice, struggled with mental problems, she never gave in, despite being encouraged by others to give in. She never gave in, but was always by his side, ensuring everything that could be done for him was done. But beyond all the good she did to others, I only knew Lorraine as the sweetest, nicest person in my life. She could never do enough for me. Whenever Sandy was angry with me, it seemed like she always took my side to keep the peace, even though she knew most of the time I was wrong and Sandy was right. But doing things for me wasn't why I loved her. I loved her because she truly was an angel here on earth. And she was rewarded for her lifetime of good deeds and doing for others by being able to share her last chapter with her own guardian angel, to whom we will always be grateful. Thank you, Hank.
Exceptional remarks for an obviously exceptional woman. Lorraine was sick for nearly a decade, and which means that we could have been gathering here at any point over the last 10 years. Could have been here a few years from now. And for those of you who have ever been to a life cycle event with me, if you've been to some of the Etkin Goldberg, either affairs or tragedies, you know that for me, there are no coincidences when it comes to the Jewish calendar. And that's my job, is to put Lorraine's death in the context of Judaism and the Jewish people, and whether it is Lorraine speaking through the Torah to us about the message that she wishes to leave, or whether it's God speaking through the Torah to us about Lorraine, it's irrelevant which one you choose to believe, but I will tell you that there are three profound lessons about us being here on this particular day. Lorraine passed away and is being buried on a bridge between Parashat Vayera and Parashat Bo, which may mean nothing to you. But you know the story. Parashat Vayera and Parashat Bo are the 10 plagues. They're the 10 plagues, 10 terrible things. And this week in particular, we have the last 3 plagues. Plague of locusts, followed by the plague of darkness. Plague of darkness is not what you think. And we know this because it says specifically in the Torah that during the plague of locusts, the locusts, they covered the sky so that no one could see. There was a physical darkness, which begs the question, why a plague of darkness? And it's because that 9th plague was about a metaphysical type of darkness, a sadness, a type of darkness that occurs that prevents us from moving, prevents us from taking a step forward in time, depression. And yet, only a fifth of the Israelites, 20%, were able to brave this last unbelievable plague. And the answer to why is profound. Now, Lorraine, as we mentioned earlier, and as was alluded to by the reference of curveballs that occurred in her life, she had darkness. She was one of 6, raised to doting parents, loving parents. She was raised in almost 2 different families, 3 older siblings, 3 somewhat around her age, and her older sister in the house passed away tragically when she was 8 years old, sending her mother into a deep dive of depression and leaving an 8-year-old girl to care for her 2 younger siblings and to care for her household. And of course, you're aware of the other curveballs that inevitably were thrown her way, seemingly creating a plague of darkness. And how is it that the Israelites survived this plague that we read about 3,000 years ago? Yoshvim b'moshvotam. They found refuge in their houses. In other words, they found light, they found beauty, they found joy by walking inside and being with family and being with friends. Whenever there was something that was troubling, tragic, difficult for Lorraine, she found she found light amongst family, amongst the people who not only she loved, but who loved her back. And it is because of that that you heard these wonderful testimonies of an angel, someone who walked amongst us, but perhaps was so beautiful and so kind that she was actually not one of us. Extraordinary. In the same parsha, God gives the Jewish people the very first mitzvah for the entirety of the Jewish people. It's the first one. We read it this week. Anybody know what it is? What's the first commandment God gives the Jewish people? Be fruitful and multiply is incorrect, but it is the most fun, Larry. Thank you. Create a calendar. Create a calendar so that as a Jewish people, you can count time. You can know when holidays fall. You can know when you're supposed to commemorate a yortzeit. Create a calendar. Is it a coincidence that the mitzvah of creating a calendar happens to be the most extraordinary skill that her son Adam possesses? He memorizes calendars. Maybe that's Lorraine speaking to us. Maybe that's God speaking through the Torah at us, saying, see, it was worth it. It was worth it. Most beautifully is the third thing that occurs in this Torah. Only a few chapters later, God gives yet another mitzvah to the Jewish people. Tell the story. Tell the story. It's told to us this week. Tell the story. And how is it that we tell stories? Do we simply get up and speak? Do we write them down? Or is there, Karen, another way in which we tell stories? Another way in which we document life? Another way in which we celebrate that which we see and pass it on to future generations so that they can also appreciate it? Tell the story in any way that is yours and tell it so that it's beautiful and remembered. I'm not making these three things up. They are in the Torah for us, as if Lorraine wanted each of us to know when it's dark outside, seek light amongst your family and friends. Yes, it may have been a challenge to have a son who was diagnosed with something a parent can never, ever, ever anticipate, and yet it was worth it. It says so in the Torah. And how proud I am to have had someone who can tell a story in a way that is unique, sacred, and exceptional. Three things, three lessons, three ways in which Lorraine, on the day of her burial, reminds us of not only who she was, but of what she leaves behind to every single one who knew her and who loved her. Amen. I'm going to ask you to please rise. El Malei Rachamim, Shochein Bamromim, Hamsei Menukana Konatakat Kanfei Hashchina, V'malot Kedoshim Utorim, Kezor Rakia Mazhirim, Et Nishmat Rachel Bat Moshe Shlomo, Shelcha Liolamaha Began Eden Tehe Menukata Ana, Ba'ala Rakamim, Hastere Beseter Kenefeka Liolamim, Utzror Bitzror HaChayim, Et Nishmata, Adonai Unakalata, V'tanuach B'Shalom Al Mishkava, V'nomar, Amen. Exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure to the soul of Lorraine Levy, who is gone to her eternal home. Merciful one, we ask that she find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May her soul be bound up in the bond of life. May she rest in peace. And let us all say, Amen.
For those of you who will be going to the cemetery this afternoon, we do have escorts that will assist in getting us down safely to Menor Gardens. They are in cars, they're not on motorcycles. It's not a very nice day for motorcycles. So what we're gonna be doing is directing you from outside to follow the escorts. Anyone who is not going to the cemetery, I would recommend that you return to your cars and leave immediately, just leaving those behind that are gonna be going to the cemetery. Thank you. To anyone who's not going to the cemetery, please return to your cars now. Those who are gonna be going to the cemetery, continue to be minutes.
Yeah.